Mr. Acting President, Madam Prime Minister, distinguished ministers, and other distinguished ladies and gentlemen present, and especially Minister Sandy. May I call you Brigadier? It sounds better. I thank you, Brigadier, for all you have done to pull this program together. And I must say, reading through all the materials that Alma and I were sent to prepare ourselves for today, I was deeply impressed by the quality of the work that you have done to pull this interagency group together, and by the dedication you and the members of your team have shown to make sure that this actually works. For the business people here, it is not just about mentorship, it's about the future of your businesses. It's about the future of the country. These young people are going to be your workers, they're going to be your customers. And so don't see this business leaders as just a volunteer effort you participate in, and you are investing in your own companies and in the future of the society that will sustain your companies over time. It's a little unusual to see two generals involved in things like this, and as I was getting ready to come down here, I started to Google alert Trinidad and Tobago just to keep up with what was going on down here. And a lot of blogs came up about the visit that Alma and I would be making. And some of the blogs said, well, what does he know about young people and mentoring and youth? And for that matter, what does the Brigadier know about it all? But that's what we did for most of our adult lives, he and I. We worked with young people. They were called soldiers, but they were young people. And we knew and learned over time what a young person requires in order to be successful in life or successful in the Army. They need a sense of structure. They need a sense of discipline. They need to believe in something. They need to believe in the mission of the military or the mission of their society. They have to have a sense of purpose. And above all, they have to have a sense of respect. They have to understand their place in the world and in the role that they are going to play when they become adults. And we have lots of mentors in the Army. We call them drill sergeants. Drill sergeants make very good mentors, I assure you. And we do things with our drill sergeant mentors as soon as the young recruits come in. First, we make them all dress alike, so there is no distinction between rich and poor, black and white. And then we cut all their hair off, so there's no distinction with respect to the kind of hairdo you might have. And then we teach them certain basic things like how to respond to a sergeant who is talking to you. And there are only 3 answers you're allowed to give while you're a recruit. No matter what the question is, you can only give one of 3 answers. Yes, sir, no, sir, or no excuse, sir. That's it. Don't say anything else. All you'll do is get in trouble. And so we teach them responsibility. We teach them how to be accountable to themselves. We teach them the importance of being part of a team so that you take care of your other soldiers. And then we teach them how to march, how to step out with your left foot first. We teach them how to do right face, left face. It's not only an efficient way to move a group of human beings around, but more importantly, it shows you what accountability is. Because if you are doing left face when all of your other buddies are doing right face, you will soon discover that you will be in trouble with your buddies. And you will soon discover what it means to be part of a team. You will soon discover what it means to do what you're supposed to do, when you're supposed to do it, and why this is the right way to go through life. The minister noted that I'm of Caribbean heritage. My parents were immigrants from Jamaica. 2 very short, wonderful people who came to the United States looking for a better life. And they brought with them their Jamaican heritage, that Caribbean love of fun, that Caribbean music that has meant such an important part to me over my life. And I have given full credit to my parents, and John touched on this, for what I became, what my sister became. She became a very, very successful teacher. I was just an average kid, but I had this wonderful family. I had a mother and a father, and every day they went to work, and they came home in the evening having produced enough for the children to eat, and we never wanted for anything. But beyond my mother and father as my mentors and as the parents that I wish every child could have, and that you wouldn't have songs like the beautiful song we just heard by that lovely lady, "Dad, when are you coming back? When are you coming home?" I was blessed to have that kind of home. But more than that, I had this extended West Indian family. You all know what I'm talking about. All these aunties and uncles who hung around looking down on the street to beat up any child that was misbehaving, whether it was their child or not. It made no difference. They were all our children. And the simple point was, we didn't come to this country and work like this in order for the next generation to ruin it. John talked about, what have we lost? It never used to be like this. We used to have this structure in our lives and in our families. And we need to get back to that. That's what this is all about. And in my family, as John kidded briefly, when I got in trouble, and that was not an infrequent occasion, but when I got in trouble, they never really spanked me. They had a far better weapon than spanking. My mother would just look at me and say, "You have shamed the family." Oh my God, don't say that, please. Anything but that. But that was the killer. Don't do anything that shames this family. Don't bring us down. We're always trying to go up, and you are the means by which we go up. People often ask me, well, you became chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. You had 3 million soldiers under your responsibility. Secretary of State, all these things. When you were a kid growing up in the South Bronx section of New York City, did you ever dream you would grow up and become chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff? And I kid and say, yeah, there I was. I was about 10 years old. And I was standing on the corner. And I said to myself, "Self, you're going to grow up and become chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff of the United States of America." That is not the way life happens. And at that time, we in America of color lived in a segregated society. It was unthinkable for a black kid 10 years old in the South Bronx section, having been born in Harlem, having parents who were immigrants, to imagine becoming chairman of the Joint Chiefs of Staff. But it happened. And it happened because my parents and the other mentors in my life, my aunts, my uncles, my priests, my teachers, my coaches, all of these adults came into my life and were there for me. And they brought me to a position where I could get a Bachelor of Science degree in geology, which I never practiced, but I became a soldier at the same time. And I went into the Army at a unique period in our nation's history. We had just ended segregation. In 1954, when I started college, that's when they passed the law that said you could no longer have separate and equal schools. Doesn't make sense. They have to be equal. And then we went through a period of integration in our schools and in our public life and in our national life. And when I left college and went into the Army in 1958, I was part of the first generation of African Americans that could go in the Army without any segregation being left in the Army. And what my sergeants and what my superiors said to me was, okay, listen, don't give us any hard luck stories about you're a black kid from Harlem in the South Bronx. We don't want to hear anything about your immigrant background. Don't give us any of these stories about how you were poor and the rest of that. We don't care what your color is. We don't care where you came from. We know you didn't go to West Point. We know you went to a public school system. None of that makes any difference. The only thing that now counts is performance. The only thing that counts, and the only thing that should count in this life for any of us, is performance. Believing in yourself, believing in your country, believing in your ability to go as far as your dreams and ambitions and willingness to work hard will take you. It is that simple premise that was put into me by my family, by the mentors in my lives, and by my leaders when I started out in the Army. You do well, you perform, you'll get ahead. You don't, you won't. Simple as that. Got it? Understand. I like that. And it took me to the top. And then when I left the Army, I loved traveling around to America and seeing a part of America and lots of parts of America that I didn't know because I'd been a soldier. I'd been in Vietnam, I'd been in Europe. Hadn't spent that much time traveling. And so I started traveling around, giving speeches. And one day I was at a Boys and Girls Club in Florida, in a poor neighborhood. And I was giving a story not unlike what I've just shared with you about my background and growing up and my parents, my aunts and uncles, and my Jamaican heritage. And all of the young kids were in front of me listening very, very carefully and seriously. And when I was through thinking, gosh, I really impressed these kids, one young boy raised his hand and said, General, that's very nice, and thank you for your speech, but I don't have that. I don't have a family like that. I don't have parents like that. You did, I don't. So that's not my world. Can I still make it? And my answer to him was, yes, you can. Yes, you can. I wish everybody had the kind of upbringing that I did, but yes, you can, because you're here in this Boys and Girls Club, because the people in your community are supporting this club, because people are coming here every single day to be with you. So you can make it if you believe in yourself. But I also knew that had to be a new part of my life, where I would work with Boys and Girls Clubs. I would eventually be the founder of America's Promise. I would spend a lot of time in school systems making sure that we found these kids and let them know that we loved them, we believed in them, even if they weren't our natural child, they were our children. They were the future of our society. In America, as Alma has pointed out, with all of our wealth, everybody thinks that Americans have all the wealth in the world, but we have children who were not insured. We had children who did not have this kind of family or community upbringing. Children who are hungry, children who are poor. And those of us who have the means, and the means just doesn't mean money, it means your talent, it means your time. But above all, it means your willingness to share, your willingness to get into the life of a kid. You're not going to save every person with a program, but each one of us can save one kid or two kids. We want you to be a mentor, not to become the parent of that child, just to be there for that child. You can't imagine the impact you can have by volunteering to be a mentor and by encouraging all of your employees to do so. You can't imagine, because that child is suddenly coming around to the belief that I must be important. There must be something to me. If this person is willing to come from their job or spend time with me on a Saturday, I must be worth it. I must be worth something. Not too long ago, I saw on television a story about a young Hispanic kid, and he lived in Denver, and he was going to a Catholic school, a Jesuit school in Denver. It was a high school, and he'd had difficulty in his life. He lived in a poor family. He lived in a bad neighborhood. All the things that could go wrong, that could put somebody on the wrong path, existed in his life. But he prevailed. He was one of 71 kids in this high school who were graduating, and they all had prevailed, and they all were going to college. And so he was being featured on television. And the interviewer said to him, well, with all that was going on wrong in your life, how is it that you have succeeded? Not only are you graduating and going to college, you're the valedictorian of the class. And the young man looked right back at the camera and he said, I was never given the opportunity to fail. They would not let me fail. My parents, my teachers, my priest, the other adults in my life would not let me fail. And that story touched me deeply because it's how I came up out of the South Bronx. Having adults in my life, family members, priests, people I could look up to and see what good work is about, why I should model myself after that person. I was not allowed to fail. And then the young man said something else. He teared up a little bit, and he said, I'm the first person from my family to ever graduate from high school and the first person in my family to ever go to college. He said, I've changed the history of my family. I've changed the history of my family. And every time I look at that piece, I say, we've got to do this for every kid. We've got to find a way to get in the lives of every single child who needs it, whether it's in the United States, the Republic of Trinidad and Tobago, you name it. It's around the world. Because there's a horrible alternative to this. We see it in America. America, with 5% of the population of the world, we have 25% of the prisoners of the world. 2 million Americans are in jail. A large percentage of them are minority, African Americans. A large percentage of them are in jail because of drug use, because somewhere along the way, as they were coming along, when the opportunity exists to shape this person, they were not shaped the right way. Oh, they found mentors. They found bad mentors. They found tribes to hang out with. They found gangs to hang out with. Not good gangs in the Boys and Girls Clubs, but the bad gangs, the kind of gangs that infect our communities and that are infecting the communities of Trinidad and Tobago. And the only way to break that cycle is to get in their lives with the right kinds of people, with people who can serve as examples to them. This is the way you're supposed to behave. This is the way you're supposed to get ahead in life. And I believe in you, and I will make sure that you get there. If you believe in yourself, you will not be given an opportunity to fail. It is not just a matter of doing something nice. It's a matter of national security. It's a matter of national economic growth. It's a matter of reducing your crime rate and reducing your drug problems. It's a matter of survival for all of our societies to get into the lives of these kids. And don't just start it when they are approaching high school age. Remember that the education process begins the first time a baby hears its mother's voice and knows it's his or her mother's voice. That's when education begins. And so as you do your work in mentoring, also make sure that all the resources of the government, all of the resources of the society, of the business community, of the religious community, is not only looking at youngsters who are in high school or in middle school, but are going down and looking at kindergarten and preschool. That's where it starts. That's where you start shaping a youngster, by reading to that youngster, by teaching that youngster numbers and colors and how to tell time. And in my background, there was another thing kids were taught, and it's a word I don't hear very much anymore, how to mind your manners, how to mind your adults, how to behave when you get to school. And if you don't do that early in life, when the youngster finally gets to school in the first grade, the teacher is half teacher, half truant officer, fixing the problems that existed. And you've got to make sure that you deal with the whole child, nutrition, health care, all of the things that we want for our children, we should want for every child in Trinidad and Tobago. We should want for every single child on God's earth. We have a responsibility as adults to make sure that we work on this and to make sure this isn't just a nice meeting on a Monday afternoon. Make sure that this becomes a program that is sustained and that each and every one of you find a way to get involved in it and to sustain it forever. Just remember that when the end comes for each and every one of us, as it will, the only thing you can really leave behind, your reputation, your good works, and the next generation of leaders. They're called our children. Thank you all for this opportunity. God bless you, and best of luck with the program.